We're live.
Good evening. This is a meeting of the Judicial Retention Committee, bicameral committee. Our charge is to consider the periodic retention of Supreme Court justices and Superior Court judges. In this case, this evening, we're here to take public testimony on Justices Paul Reiber, Harold Eaton, Karen Carroll, William Cohen, Nancy Waples, and on Superior Court judges Allison Arms, Thomas Carlson, Cortland Corsones, Michael Kanan, Mary Morrissey, Justin Giron, Gregory Rainville, and Kirsten Schoonover. The committee, why don't we introduce ourselves? I'm Dick McCormick, and I chair the committee.
State Senator Brian Collmore from the Rutland District.
I'm State Senator Ruth Hardy from the Addison District.
State Senator Martine LaRocque-Ulick from the Chittenden Central District.
Representative Thomas Oliver, Swanton Sheldon.
I'm Representative Angela Arsenault from Williston.
And we're expecting the arrival of Representative Chip Troiano and William Mott.
Won't be here tonight.
Chip will not be here?
No.
Oh, okay. I want to alert people that we are on Zoom and there are many people participating quietly and off camera. So, and that includes judges and justices who are up for retention. Excuse me. Our staff is Eric Fitzpatrick and Peggy Delaney. And each witness will have 5 minutes to speak. We regret holding you to a time limit, but there are people who want to speak, and we have to leave time for everybody. Often at big public hearings, people are restricted to 2 minutes, and sometimes even as little as 1, which is very frustrating. And Senator Collmore has agreed to be our timekeeper. This committee is not here to relitigate cases. Pretty much in any case that ends up in court, somebody walks out disappointed and maybe angry. But it is not our job to relitigate, nor are we an appeals court. Our job is to ascertain the worthiness of a judge or justice for retention. We are listening to your testimony this evening. We also have gotten written comments and taken testimony from from attorneys and staff. It is a small enough sampling that statistically it may not be completely reliable, not a very big sample. But what we look for is patterns. And we look for troubling patterns in the comments, and so too here. We will listen to you carefully as well. And we may recommend that a judge be retained. We could recommend that a judge not be retained. Often when problems do emerge, we find ourselves recommending retention, but only after having addressed the problems with the candidate for retention. That is all I told myself to say. So we'll start with with our first witness. Peggy, what happened to the list for witnesses?
Got it right there.
This is the judge.
Yeah.
Oh, these are okay. Thank you. Thank you. No, I got it. Okay. Most of our witnesses are on Zoom. We do have people listed as being in the room, and I'm going to do them first because people waiting on Zoom can wait comfortably and pour yourself a cup of coffee as opposed to people who are here in a government room. So is Alfonso Villegas here? No, okay. Is Douglas DeSabato here?
I'm right here. Senator
Okay.
McCormick.
Hi.
Hi.
Take the witness chair. Good to see you. Oh, excuse me, just, Senator Collmore, will you give the witness an indication please, when they're a minute from, we're giving them 5 minutes, so at 4 minutes, and then at 4 minutes and 30 seconds, just to
A minute and 30 seconds.
clear your throat.
Yes, I will.
Okay. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I was going to be up here anyway. I heard this was happening, so I thought I'd come and just speak a few minutes before I head to my event. That's why I have my notes on my island newspaper. So I'm Vermont's first elected openly gay state's attorney in Vermont. I started with the Vermont Judiciary in 2006 on the same day that Judge Rainville was appointed a judge and started in Grand Isle. That was his first. So I listened to the testimony of the comments made with Judge Rainville. And I've known Judge Rainville since that day. And I was really taken aback by some comments that were made, not only as a court officer working with Judge Rainville in Grand Isle, but also working as a private attorney in Burlington, as well as the state's attorney. Judge Rainville has been rotated into Grand Isle. One of the things he talked about was bail. If you would look at this, the Vermont Supreme Court of In re Miller, it says that both this court and the legislature determine that a person's appearance at court is of paramount importance. And if you look at the term paramount, it means more important than anything else. That's why bail is so important. And when I ask for bail, it's because the record supports that. And when I listen to Judge Rainville talk about these 8, 9 failures to appear, that's a reality. People are treating the court system like it's missing a hair appointment or a dinner reservation. It's really frustrating. And so I get it. I've seen it firsthand as the state's attorney. I'm in my 9th year as the Grand Isle County state's attorney. And I'm not sure where the comments are coming from that they don't like that he's supporting bail. I have a gentleman that's from the Bronx right now, 19 years old, that I've charged with trafficking crack cocaine as well as trafficking heroin. I learned last night that he was one of 5 that were arrested in St. Albans. It was on CAX they did a search warrant at a house and he was there. I sat for about 2 hours in St. Albans and Judge Maley issued bail, $10,000 on each one of these 5 defendants. They have no ties to this community. So what Judge Rainville is doing in terms of bail is very appropriate. And it also sort of, when Judge Barrett had her confirmation hearing, Judge Rainville is using the tools that the legislature and the Supreme Court has given him. And people are criticizing him for using those tools, but I support him wholeheartedly. I'm looking at my notes here. In terms of, apparently there was some pushback for in-person hearings. Some people are, I think some prosecutors, some other people are saying he's requiring people to appear in person. It is so important for you to appear in person. I can relate back to not that long ago where I had a merits hearing, juvenile merits hearing, where we're deciding whether the kids are in need of care or supervision. Attorneys are appearing remotely. The parents are appearing remotely. I've submitted months ago the exhibits for the merits hearing. The attorneys never gave them to the parents. Mom and dad are appearing without a camera. I can't bring the evidence up on my screen so they can see it. And then mom is referring to an exhibit that we don't have. Judge Rainville gets it. You need to have control and have people in person and have their, you can't, it was very, very frustrating, not only for the state, but these parents are in danger of potentially losing their kids. you need to have this needs to work appropriately. Odyssey has been
1 minute.
okay, abysmal. Computers, we've had trouble. I've had cases scheduled in Chittenden and Franklin County, and I've complained because it was an error. So Odyssey is sort of an ongoing problem. I think there was a comment made that Judge Rainville was grumpy, or I've never known Judge Rainville to be grumpy. And at the risk of ruffling some feathers, if you know Judge Coopersmith, if you know Judge Keller, they are grumpy. Judge Rainville is far from grumpy. And he has never been biased, in my opinion, as to female, male, sexual orientation. I just wanted to put it on the record as somebody that worked in the court system and as a state's attorney in my 9th year that I really support Judge Rainville's retention. We need more people like Judge Rainville on the bench. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And drive safely.
Yeah, I got to go to another vet, but it's a little ways home.
We'll hear from Brenna Weaver. And that's on Zoom.
Yes, I'm here on Zoom. I want to check
Gotcha.
if everyone can hear me okay.
I can hear you. Welcome.
So good evening. My name is Brianna Weaver and I'm a Vermont family law attorney. Just to start out with, I'd be remiss if I didn't begin my remarks by stating that I have only good things to say about every member of the bench who is discussing their retention tonight. However, it's my wish to offer specific testimony in strong support of Judge Schoonover's retention. I've spent the last 5 years almost exclusively practicing family law in Vermont. From 2018 to 2022, I worked under a grant that required me to work only with clients who were victims of violence. While I'm no longer working under that grant, it's still a specialty area of practice for me. It means I spend a lot of time in the relief from abuse, or RFA block. Specifically, I've spent a lot of time in the Washington and Chittenden County RFA blocks and have had the privilege of having Judge Schoonover preside over a predominant amount of the RFAs I've litigated. Additionally, in the era of WebEx, being in the RFA block typically requires you to observe many of the RFAs that are called before yours in the same block. And here is what is typically always true about relief from abuse cases. The parties, both plaintiff and defendants, are terrified. They're there to talk about some of the worst moments of their lives, and they probably never intended to talk about this day or these events with anyone, but they're now talking about them on record to a group of strangers. And by nature, the relief from abuse process is really fast, and people don't always understand the procedure. When I was a brand new attorney in 2018, when I first started taking these cases, it definitely took me some time to get my footing. And this is where Judge Schoonover really excels on the bench. I could testify much more than 5 minutes about the judge to new attorney kindness and guidance she showed me when I was first learning the ropes and when I was in her courtroom. But what I think is more important to retention is Judge Schoonover's consistent kindness, compassion, and ability to navigate the RFA block with predominantly pro se parties. As I mentioned above, the RFA block is fast and parties are typically terrified to be there. A lot of people invoke the process looking for safety without really understanding what it is. And within a week or so, it's typically over. Most are navigating the process without legal counsel. I've heard Judge Schoonover masterfully explain legal concepts and procedures to pro se parties in an understandable way without talking down to them. And as a result, I've seen pro se litigants who didn't understand the process make different, more empowered decisions, all because they, after hearing from Judge Schoonover, better understood what they were doing. Judge Schoonover's ability continues into the merits of the case. While she was sitting in Washington County in pre-pandemic, it was not uncommon to hear plaintiffs in the hallway who had just had their RFA denied. They had lost their case. Judge Schoonover had denied their RFA. But they would say that it was the first time they felt that someone had actually heard them. And that person was Judge Schoonover, the person who had just denied what they were asking for. And that's why I wanted to come here tonight, or at least by video, to testify in Judge Schoonover's support. It's a rare skill set to be able to communicate so effectively that it increases in access to justice. Pro se parties in front of Judge Schoonover are able to make more informed choices because they better understand the process. They also feel more empowered by the results because they understand them and they feel heard by the court. Pro se Vermonters benefit because Judge Schoonover is on the bench. Having seen her work firsthand over the past few years, I wholly support Judge Schoonover's retention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I realize because of you, I mispronounced Schoonover, and I apologize to Judge Schoonover. Thank you. We'll hear next from Alfonso Villegas. Viega?
I don't think he's here.
Okay, apparently not. Trevor Colby. If Trevor Colby is ready in Zoom. You have to turn yourself on.
Working on it. Thank you
There
very
is.
much. My name's Trevor Colby. I'm the Essex County Sheriff. I've been serving as the sheriff for 12 years. It's the first time I've participated in a judicial retention hearing. It is an uncomfortable process, I guess, to be sitting here. I submitted written testimony to the committee primarily to say I think there should be a better process. I think there should be a place where people can regularly comment and that this committee can look at those comments throughout the year rather than one time to have a place to bring a concern to the committee. Over the last year, I've become increasingly frustrated with the response to crime in our communities. I've become increasingly frustrated because I'm regularly questioned by people, by citizens out in the community about why are they letting everyone go? Why is everyone returning to the streets? Why do they let them right back out on the street to continue to commit crimes? And so just 4 examples that I'll give you in more specifics than I did in the writing. There's 2 gentlemen that we have arrested multiple times in our community who have had 8 arrest warrants in 1 year for one of them. One of them jumped in a lake to try to escape and still was released without bail. Another, it was 8 arrest warrants in 18 months. We had another individual on a long period of 24-hour curfew at their residence, who, when we attempted to take them into custody, pulled a knife on a state trooper, and weeks later was released on his own recognizance. The other serious issue that we recently had was a young man where he broke into a residence and was threatening victims from a crime when he had an active arrest warrant out, and he was released that night only to escape the next day. Now, he has been held, but when you break into someone's home and destroy their property and threaten them and their victims, they should be held that night until they're heard in court before a state's attorney. I bring all these issues because these are issues that I've come up against with Judge Gyron. And when I say it's a frustrating position to be in, it's a frustrating position not to be able to have these conversations or bring this to the attention of the judge or a member of the judiciary and to have to wait and do it in a hearing like this. This is not where I want to do it. I believe that Judge Gyron is a very professional judge. I do believe he attempts to make good decisions, but his position on bail and holding people accountable does not work. And I wanted to offer the committee those recommendations and just say that I do not recommend him for retention.
Thank you, Sheriff. We have addressed that issue with several judges, and they often point to the fact that the law kind of confines what they can do. So perhaps it's the legislature is the problem.
I will say that the legislature needs to provide some free or during the conditions of release phase opportunity for drug treatment. That is, when the judge's hands are tied, they don't have those options but those are what families are really in need of.
I didn't ask before, does the committee have any questions or comments?
This is just to hear.
Just to hear, okay.
Here, I don't think we're supposed to be having conversations with the witness.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you.
Alfonso Villegas. Did I pronounce you correctly?
Villegas, it's close.
Okay.
Could I just
Yeah.
just to tell them about the timing, because you weren't here at the beginning. I'm going to keep track of the 5 minutes, so when there's 1 minute left, I'll just hold my finger up and you'll know that you have a minute left to testify.
Okay, yes, sir.
Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Let me know when you're ready.
We are ready.
Okay. So my name is Alfonso Villegas. I'm presently a deputy state's attorney at the Washington County State's Attorney's Office. I've been there since 2017. I'm also a member of the Vermont Bar Association. I'm a board member of the Vermont Bar Association. But I'm here in my personal capacity and not representing any of those organizations. I personally would like to provide my input with regards to, I think I've practiced before all of the judges that are up for retention, and I want to support all of them. I think they're excellent. I'm from South Florida. I came to law school at Vermont Law School in 2014. I graduated in 2017. I've never been to Tallahassee, the state capital, but here in Vermont, it's such an accessible state for state government, for officials. And I think the law school is quite fortunate to have a judiciary that's open to the public, and its officers have been more than willing to go to the law school and engage with students. That's probably one of the reasons why I feel comfortable in this state and that I've stayed in this state. And I'm quite grateful for all of the justices having supported the law school and engaged with students. I'd like to particularly mention Judge Mary Morrissey. She was the presiding criminal judge in Washington County prior to the pandemic and then through the pandemic. I think she definitely did an absolutely amazing job administering the docket. Washington County came out essentially sterling compared to all of the other counties in the state in terms of moving the criminal docket along. She also sat on the Washington County Adult Drug Treatment Court. Vermont has 3 adult drug treatment courts, not including the DUI docket in Windsor County. There's Chittenden, Rutland, and Washington County. The COVID shutdown was incredibly difficult for everyone, but in particular for individuals struggling with substance use. Judge Morrissey was an incredibly balanced, fair judge. And to be clear, she ruled against the state a lot, a lot. I had my first, I had a number of trials before Judge Morrissey, and she was a very exacting judge and wanted to ensure a fair, absolutely fair process for the defendant and the state. And I think she definitely has met that standard. I encourage the members of this panel to retain all of the justices and judges. And I also want to say that I'm incredibly grateful that I've had the experience of meeting with Chief Justice Reiber on more than one occasion. He has been incredibly supportive of law students, of the Inns of Court out of Rutland County, and everyone on this list, I think, has done very well by the citizens of Vermont and by everyone in the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for me?
We're
Okay.
close to questions.
Okay, great. Okay.
Thank you.
And we'll hear next from Kelly Green, Office of the Defender General.
Hello, all. This is Kelly Green. I just want to make sure you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Coming through
Yes.
fine. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm a criminal defense attorney. I do work for the Office of the Defender General, but I'm just speaking on my own behalf. I've practiced criminal law in Vermont for about 18 years. You have a marvelous slate of judges and justices. You should reappoint them all. I'm coming here this evening from Randolph, Vermont, my home in Randolph, Vermont, just to make a few remarks. Number one, I hope that this committee is gathering data about sentencing, particularly how in the context of race and racial disparities in sentencing. These anecdotes are fantastic. They do shed light on what judges are like, but I hope that you get some data to evaluate them. I had a 3-week, I handle mostly serious felonies. I represent people charged with the most serious felonies. And in 2019, I had the pleasure of trying a 3-week homicide in front of Judge Rainville. Judges have a variety of skills. His best skill is he can preside over a complex and lengthy trial. The thing that he did best during that trial was he gave both sides, the lawyers litigating the case, a lot of time to get things right. He made sure we were not pressured, we were not in a rush. This is difficult these days. We all feel like we are in a rush, but Judge Rainville was very, very good at allowing us time to write motions, argue motions. And I'm going to tell you, especially, he gave us 3 days to select a jury. I have investigated 3 juries recently where people were convicted. In all 3 cases, these are major felonies, there were jurors who should never have been seated on those panels. In 2 cases, I found jurors who had advanced dementia. In a 3rd case, I found a juror who only spoke French. These are grounds to reverse a conviction, which I will do. When judges rush, voir dire, as they are pressured to do from all of these outside forces, you can end up with wrongfully convicted people who have not had a fair trial because they haven't had 12 jurors, they've had 11 jurors. Judge Rainville is very conscientious about taking the time necessary to hear a case, even when there's a million things going on. So he also, during that 3-week trial, was incredibly kind to the lawyers, probably against court policy. He made sure we all had coffee, which sounds silly, but when someone hands you a cup of coffee in the middle of a major trial, you relax a little bit and you're able to actually be more efficient and function. He made sure his staff was there to help us, and it was a good experience.
Attorney Green, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. I just also wanted to say on behalf of Judge Kanan, I've had lots and lots of cases in front of Judge Kanan, and when I've represented incarcerated people, and he has always made sure that my clients have felt heard, and he has always applied common sense to hearing their claims. Sometimes they bring claims that maybe aren't winners or are confusing, or they're pro se when they file complaints, but he always takes time to give them the benefit of the doubt and hear them out. And so that's a rare thing these days. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Green. We'll hear next from Diane Wheeler.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Diane Wheeler. I'm a deputy state's attorney up here in Franklin County, Vermont, and I've been with this office for approximately 30 years. During that time, I've had the opportunity to appear in front of Judge Rainville on numerous occasions. The one thing that I first thought of after listening to some of the comments from last night is that Judge Rainville has always been respectful of all persons that have appeared in front of him. He commands the courtroom with civility and compassion. He has the ability to speak with people and to understand what everyone, particularly the defendants and the victims, are going through. He treats all parties, no matter their race, gender identity, age, things of that nature, fairly. Everyone gets the same voice, and he hears each of those voices. Now, Judge Rainville will express displeasure, but that is only if a person is being rude, is engaging in bad behavior, disruptive behavior, or particularly with the attorneys, if they are unprepared. But that displeasure is also constructive in many ways, the way in which he expresses it. Specifically, if an attorney is unprepared, he has been known to ask them to go back to brief the subject, and he will reset the hearing. He doesn't cut them off. He gives them an opportunity, again, to be heard. He has consistently come to the bench prepared, knowing his cases, knowing what he was there to do that day. There have been rare occasions where he didn't specifically recall the facts of a case, as the case was called by the court clerk. However, he didn't try and hide that. He asked the parties, I remember reading this case, can you bring me up to date? He was very good about acknowledging when he needed to be brought up to date in that regard. Judge Rainville also shows on the bench the ability to run his caseload. He moves the cases. He looks towards resolutions. When appropriate, he will help foster resolutions. And my experience as a trial attorney, as outlined in many ways by Ms. Green, is that he knows the rules of evidence. He knows how to move the trial, but gives you the time to work and show what the case is about. He also takes all of the information that he has received once a trial is concluded and there's a conviction, such as the pre-sentence investigation or psychosexual report, and gives great thought and detail to his sentences. Judge Rainville has shown himself specifically since last retention to be a person on the bench who can run his docket and be considerate of all persons in fairly evaluating and deciding his cases.
1 minute, Attorney Wheeler.
Thank you. For those reasons, I support the retention of Judge Rainville. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We'll hear next from Jill Jordan, attorney.
Good evening, everyone. Please excuse my rather haggard appearance. I'm recovering from a 2-week stint with COVID-19.
Oh.
If I sound nasally, that's why. So I hold both main public defense contracts in the Northeast Kingdom, both in Orleans County and Caledonia County. And I honestly, I'll be honest with you, I hate appearing. I know it sounds strange. I love doing trials, but I don't like doing this. But I think it's really important to come forward and to say good things when one sees good things. And we're in a climate where I see Vermont, it's getting very hard to find judges and good judges, and we want to keep those on the bench. So I, like Kelly Green, I'm sorry if I cough some, I'm really sorry, support the retention of these justices and judges. But I want to speak specifically and as quickly as I can about two in particular, and then cursorily about three. So first, I'd like to address my experience with Judge Rainville. I've practiced law in Vermont. I'm a sixth-generation Vermonter. I'm proud of that, obviously. I have been a lawyer 20 years, and I've devoted my entire defense. I encountered Judge Rainville.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up a little bit. Could you? We
No,
like seeing your face, but just try turning the camera off. See if that makes the vocal part strong.
Okay. So over the 21 years that I have practiced law, it was largely many times in front of Judge Rainville. I'd like to address some specific points about Judge Rainville. I have not ever seen him exhibit bias towards anyone in the courtroom. I've seen him to make fair decisions, albeit perhaps not ones I agreed with, but I saw him weigh the evidence and make decisions as a judge should. And sometimes, obviously, it's not in favor of one side or the other. But nonetheless, I've always felt that they were fair, and I've never seen him exhibit any kind of bias towards the lawyers, whether it be race, gender, etc. I've always found Judge Rainville to be extraordinarily approachable. And what I mean by that is not necessarily, obviously, having dinner with him. What I mean by that is that he has a very easygoing demeanor. And it's very important. Criminal law is extraordinarily stressful. And when you have a judge on the bench who makes your work environment a little easier to be in, and you're happy to be there, it's extraordinarily helpful. And it's also extraordinarily helpful to move the docket. I've observed him have very good, I'll use the word control for lack of a better word, over the docket to move things, to try to either have things settle or get the case tried if that needs to be what's happened. He has a very good sense of humor. I've enjoyed that on many occasions, and it puts most everyone in the courtroom at ease. I've never found him to be ill-mannered in any way, and I also find him to be responsive. I also wanted to say a few words about Judge Gyron. With regard to Judge Gyron, he's an incredibly compassionate person, and I think that is an extraordinary quality to have as a judge. He is very responsive to the huge drug problem that we have in the state of Vermont, but more particularly in the Northeast Kingdom. He's responsive to homeless people and the mentally ill, as well as to really every defendant that comes in front of him.
One more minute, Attorney Jordan.
Okay. And so just a note on a few that I have not practiced as long in front of. I want to say that my experience with Justice Reiber, that I found him to be a very well-mannered judge, and I enjoyed meeting him and having professional contact with him. Justice Eaton reminds me of the gentleman that did Sesame Street. And what I mean by that is the kindness that Justice Eaton has emitted over the years in front of me is admirable. I would say that Judge Michael Kanan, he has been, in my experience, when I have appeared in front of him, reasoned and fair. And Judge Mary Morrissey, I had an associate of mine, an attorney who works for me, who raved about Judge Morrissey's ability to actually maintain and get through an extraordinarily 20-count plea change via WebEx.
I don't mean to interrupt, but it's 5 minutes there.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Ms.
much.
Jordan, if you can, put your camera on for a second so we can say goodbye to you decently. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for your testimony, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. And we'll hear now from Rory Malone.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Rory Malone. I am a lapsed public defender. I've been a public defender for the previous 18 years. and I stepped away from the practice in late 2022. I'm here to speak specifically about Judge Rainville, although I would be remiss to say that my experiences in front of a number of these judges would speak to retention of all of those who I've appeared in front of. One of the benefits of speaking late, I suppose, in these hearings is that everything that I would say about Judge Rainville has been said by the other parties. I always found him to be incredibly compassionate and well prepared. There was a period of time when Judge Rainville was assigned up in Franklin County when I was one of the public defenders up there. And he was there for a year, and he rotated out to Grand Isle for a year, and then he rotated back into Franklin County. And in that period of time, I also happened to be the public defender in Grand Isle. So I had the distinct pleasure of appearing in front of Judge Rainville for 3 straight years. I think he and I saw more of each other than any other lawyer and judge in the state. And I can say that my experience with him was that he expresses and exhibits incredible compassion on the bench. One of the things that I think makes him a very good judge is that he is able to speak to defendants in a vernacular where defendants can understand. Judge Rainville never lets people forget that he himself grew up on a dairy farm, and sometimes breaking those barriers down with my clients helped communicate to them in ways that that made them more receptive to hear. I have heard, I was not privy to the testimony yesterday, although I can speak to some of his moods on the bench. I don't think it's accurate to say that I never had any experiences with Judge Rainville where he may not have growled at somebody on the bench, for lack of a better phrase. But I would say that in every instance where he did things like that, he was acting in a protective way for either one of the parties in a case, be it the state's attorney or a defense attorney or one of the witnesses or complaining witness. I think anyone who's been in a courtroom, and particularly anyone who's been a public defender, has experienced the moment where you're at a table with your client and your client says something ill-advised. And there were a number of occasions with Judge Rainville where that happened. And he was able to manage those situations in ways that I thought were incredibly appropriate. I always found him receptive to arguments that I would make when it came to sentencing, or receptive to arguments that I would make with respect to motions or any other arguments. I also found him to be one of the judges who would at times exercise his powers in equity. I had cases where, in incredibly minor cases where Judge Rainville dismissed a client's driving without a license case because when he heard the experience that my client had had over the course of the last few weeks, he decided for himself that that individual needed a break and decided to do what he thought was the right thing to do. And I find acts like that extraordinary.
1 more minute.
So, for those reasons, I think that, I would recommend his retention to the bench. I certainly had experiences in front of other judges. I see that Judge Arms and Judge Morrissey are also up for retention. I cannot say anything negative. I only have glowing things to say about both of those judges. And I did have good experiences with Justice Waples when she was Judge Waples in Lamoille County during the pandemic. I think that she is also an incredibly gifted jurist, and I would recommend retention of all of those judges. And I thank the committee for their time.
Thank you, sir. And we'll hear next from Jesse O'Brien.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you see me? I can't see myself.
We can see you. Can you see
Yeah,
us?
I see you, and I'll go with that because I get nervous
Okay.
looking at myself. I want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I am here to speak on behalf of Judge Schoonover. We recently closed a case, family, really, really horrible, conditional custody order with DCF. My case was closed in December, and since then, my children and I are in a worse position than we were the year and a half when the case opened. Real quick, I just want to say, I believe she's looking to do retention, but that means the continued possession that one has over control over something. And with this last court case, okay, so let me just stop trying to be, I'm just going to be honest. So basically, I am a drug addict in recovery. And I feel like I was definitely kind of looked down upon from the get-go from DCF. And I really, they came into my life because I had used cocaine with my baby the last week of pregnancy. I got myself honest and told DCF myself because I needed help. I was in a very abusive relationship. Anyway, by the time we go to court with DCF, I spoke too much to a judge and they granted temporary custody to the father. In that time, he had a relief of abuse order on me. And basically, I just feel like I wasn't heard. The disposition hearing that I was supposed to have was something that never happened. It was, I felt like I'm all over the map. I apologize. Judge Schoonover has really didn't help with a solution for me and my children to be together, period. I feel like I wasn't heard. I felt like she wasn't in control of my case. My lawyer filed 5 motions of contempt against the father for not filing court order, and she let those go. I wish I could recall the 2 judges that we saw for an emergency hearing because they left it in Judge Schoonover's hands, but they saw the contempt of court, that you have to follow a court order. And I have to be honest with the whole way the case went down. My kids are in a really dangerous, emotionally domestic violence situation. At this point, they closed my case and I don't know what to do. I'm here complaining right now because I feel like she didn't take me serious. Look at the evidence of sobriety. Look at the pattern of abuse and emotional, physical. Never once asked about the children. Never once looked into a solution of visitation. So for example, I was supposed to have visitation in August, unsupervised, and progress into like 4 days a week. I still have only seen my kids 6 times, a handful of times. This was an issue every time we went to court. And it was awful. Never was there a solution. I'm going to be honest with you. I feel I do feel like I just wish that she had set me up for success, really. And that being said, come up with a conclusion for my kids. And I know, again, I'm very emotional with this because I haven't seen my kids since Christmas. I have a 2- and a 5-year-old boy. They are, in the hands of my abuser. I'm going through a divorce. I don't know where to go. They said, they closed the case, came up with a black and white, pretty much like what our schedule is supposed to look like, and no one's followed that schedule. And there's no way to be accountable. She also suggested the Lund home for supervised visitations. Unfortunately, I'm on the child abuse registry, and so is the father of the kiddos, so we can't go there. That's not an option. She also never, for supervisors, Mr. Gallipo, my ex-husband, wouldn't approve my mother because she was an alcoholic, and and we never addressed any of those issues. So I guess my frustration is here I am right now trying to stay sober, listening to these people speak wonderful things. Brianna Weaver, everything she said, I wish that I could have feel that way, that kindness and compassion.
I don't mean to interrupt, but you only have a minute.
I don't know what to say. I just feel like long story short, I'm a drug addict. I feel like I was a docket number. My position in the case moving forward and where they ended it is exactly what has not happened. I think that the court needs judges to really look out for the best interest of the children and follow that. Because right now I've got 2 young children struggling and I can't do anything. And I was never considered. So I think these are very troubling patterns, the patterns of contempt and having to file 5 contempts of court is very troublesome to me. And yeah.
Thank you. As you may have heard earlier, we are here to take testimony, not to comment. I do want to acknowledge that a legislative hearing is not a particularly warm, welcoming place for someone dealing with troubles like you are. I'm
Well, you know
sorry for
what?
that.
And that's fine. And I feel intimidated, and that's why I didn't speak well. But like when I saw this on the news, my friends, like I was excited to be able to speak up and be heard. When I saw the room of people that were sitting here, that's not what this opportunity was. And it's not about anything besides the simple fact of, should this woman continue to be a judge or not? And, people speak wonderful, but I think it's important to hear from someone that had a really bad experience and their life is extremely affected. And I'm sorry that I had to come here and do it, but at least I feel heard, and maybe someone will make a difference. Maybe the governor, someone can do something.
Thank you for your testimony.
Sure.
Thank you.
And that is the full list of is there.
Douglas Sabito. He was
He
first.
testified.
He was first.
Yeah, he was our number one.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Then
So-
McCormick, I have somebody asking to join right now. Should I send them the link?
What is the committee's? I'm a soft touch. What does the committee think? It's one person, they want to be heard.
Yeah.
I don't think it hurts anything. Yeah, let's.
Okay. It'll take a minute.
Yep. Said what?
I sent him the link. Just waiting for him to
Okay.
join. I guess I told him to please join now.
Found my missing ID.
Said what?
I found my missing ID.
Oh,
I just realized I didn't have my access pad. It's at home on the counter.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good place for it.
So what, you found it?
No. No, well, I said, look on the counter, please.
Perhaps.
I'll have to get a second one.
Is that a thing?
Hmm?
Is that a thing?
I like brownies.
I emailed him the link. He hasn't emailed me back. I'm hoping he's can. I said, please join now.
Okay, well,
Name is John LeBlanc.
I apologize to the committee. I thought he was on. I thought he was ready to testify.
I did too.
No, he was asking to. Do you want me to tell him?
Well,
Is he
here
available?
now?
He asked me if it was too late. I emailed him right back and said, here's the link, please join now. And he has not emailed me back.
Okay, then I think we should adjourn.
Yeah. It was pretty clear you had to pre-register.
Yeah.
I thought we were doing the 15-minute thing and then waiting for more people to come.
Point well taken.
I think, it was scheduled to be over at 6, is that right?
Well, it's scheduled 5 to 7 with the understanding we'd leave early if we ran out of witnesses.
I think the 15-minute thing, said Hardy was if like nobody was here.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood then.
Because there was a requirement that they register ahead of time.
Yeah, they were supposed to.
Yeah.
I don't see anyone named John.
Yeah. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes